I try to give people a different way of looking at their surroundings. That's art to me. Maya Lin.
Part of what I like about public art is that you end up with something that is the result of moments of agreement and disagreement, that is very connected to the way society works.
Art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. Pablo Picasso.
Public art, in some ways, is what carries forward the spirit of a community.
Great art picks up where nature ends. Marc Chagall.
It's like a mirror, or it kind of echoes the concerns and issues of the time with the unique imprint of the artist and the unique vision.
My role in society, or any artist's or poet's role, is to try and express what we all feel. Not to tell people how to feel, not as a preacher, not as a leader, but as a reflection of us all. John Lennon.
You're able to interact a lot of times with public art, and I think that's incredibly important. And in our society, you don't have to go to the museum. It's right out there in front of you.
Public art helps define our community. Whether hidden within a paseo or shouting its presence from 21 feet high, it influences our everyday life. Art shares a story, asking for nothing in return, yet plants a seed that quickly blooms into an appetite for conversation. It might make you smile, or it might challenge you. Either way, it leaves you aware that there is an enchantment to this city beyond the flourishing landscapes, towering mountains, and the glistening ocean that surrounds it. Public art in Santa Barbara often serves as an opportunity to complement its natural environment while acknowledging our history. One needs only to stroll the sidewalks adjacent to Santa Barbara's West Beach to spot examples of such ambience. Public art found its way into the West Beach Pedestrian Improvement Project when artists were called upon to create 4 tile mosaics that would adorn different stretches of sidewalk along West Cabrillo Boulevard. With one of the crossings resting on what was once the Chumash village of Shuler, the Chumash community came together with contractor LAD Design Studios, gathering ideas and art from families near and far to tell the story of their ancestors who inhabited the region prior to the arrival of Western Europeans.
There was participation from over 200 people in the Chumash community and our friends. So it really brought a lot of people together, and I believe there was probably about close to 5,000 hours put into it.
It's the first time in history that all 6 Chumash tribal groups came together as one to birth this beautiful story.
The Shuler Story Circle displays an elaborate oral history spread across 200,000 tiles, sharing Chumash lore, cultural values, and their understanding of the universe.
We call the Shuler Story Circle the circle of inclusiveness and equality, regardless of gender, age, or race. So we're all in this together.
This whole story circle is about polarity, it's about balance, about living in harmony, as our ancestors did, living in complete harmony with the earth and with the universe.
Ward, Franco, and LAD Design Studios were not the only ones selected to add an historical art element to the West Beach sidewalk. When local artist and Santa Barbara City College instructor Rafael Perea de la Cabada and designer Richard Irvine won a competition sponsored by the City of Santa Barbara Redevelopment Agency, they set off to create 3 tile mosaics that would tell a story of Santa Barbara's past.
We had to find a narrative that suited the beach, some major event, and as I went through the history books, obviously the oil spill was like a major turning point in the environmental movement worldwide and in what happened consequently in Santa Barbara.
In the winter of 1969, the Santa Barbara Channel experienced an uncontrolled release of crude oil. At the time, it was the largest oil spill United States waters had ever seen. An estimated 3 million gallons of oil spoiled the Central Coast and helped spark Santa Barbara's environmental awareness, which would evolve into the first ever Earth Day celebration in 1970.
The name of the piece behind us is Ripple Effect. It talks about the oil spill that happened in Santa Barbara. You know, in a symbolic way, it's kind of how one event can trigger a multiplicity of events, and using water as a metaphor for that. You're dealing with a space that is public space, so you have to be not too forceful with emphasizing the theme of what you're trying to convey, because obviously there's a lot of different points of view.
The thing about art is it gives you, you can reinterpret what the artist's intention was, and it seems obvious to me that it's a rippling something, but I've seen people describe it as a whale. Okay, it's a whale. And I think that's fine. I think art's there to be reinterpreted by the viewer.
With a temperate climate and sunny skies, Santa Barbara helped develop a major aspect of our vibrant culture. The Solstice Celebration mural tells a story of artistic inspiration derived from community events. In 1974, Santa Barbara artists, musicians, and writers took to the streets in a colorful festival that would soon become known as the Solstice Parade. Originally intended as a birthday celebration for the popular artist and mime Michael Gonzalez, the parade later aligned with summer solstice and is now celebrated annually. Delighted with the growth and community involvement in the parade over the years, former executive director of the Santa Barbara County Arts Commission and well-known art activist Patrick Davis sought to increase awareness of Solstice. With help from local artist and performer Benjamin Bottoms and local artist and Solstice Parade founding member Richard McLaughlin, the one-day event was transformed into something that could be enjoyed all year round.
The idea behind it was to inspire people to get involved in the parade, to feel like they're a part of it when they stand in front of the mural, and that kind of participation. We wanted to make it about Michael Gonzalez and celebrate his spirit and his guidance to the whole event, and also, celebrate the community, its architecture, and the parade itself.
Designed from memories and photographs, the painting features the faces of those who contributed to the parade and mural.
We wanted to acknowledge the people that made it possible. So we put people in that we knew. And then even at one point, we had some people that wanted to be in the mural who were willing to contribute to have either their sons or daughters painted into it.
The Solstice Parade remains a significant part of Santa Barbara's culture, honoring its past while creatively looking toward the future.
One of the great things is that we're a green parade, which means we're human pushed. And we are also green in the sense that we recycle everything that we can recycle. Artists have the ability to see things and in their mind visualize a new use and purpose for those things. So a lot of what we do is repurposing of materials.
Santa Barbara's a beautiful place. It needs nothing on its, because it's so beautiful. But at the same time, part of the reason is its human environment and how that melds so wonderfully with the natural landscape. So we've got beautiful parks and such, but we also have creative architects and designers and artists that contribute to a beauty that's in consonance with the natural beauty.
Santa Barbara residents and organizations often show their appreciation for the arts through philanthropy and beautification efforts. One such organization is Santa Barbara Beautiful.
They've been huge supporters of a variety of projects all over the city to really help maintain it and to help support beautification going forward. One of the things that's significant is they have an ongoing relationship with the city to work with the trees in our urban forest. So that's so important. We take for granted that we have the beauty that we do with the variety of trees throughout the town, and that when trees die, they get replaced magically. Well, Santa Barbara Beautiful has been a huge part of that.
The coexistence of art and nature is an ongoing theme. Just as Santa Barbara's flora requires maintenance to remain picturesque, similar preservation efforts are essential to a healthy public art community. In 1991, a colorful 21-foot-high gateway weighing 12.5 tons rose up on Cabrillo Boulevard, framing the surrounding mountains and generating thoughts of curiosity and wonder. The chromatic gate was designed by Austrian artist Herbert Bayer. Considered by many to be the most famous international artist ever to live in Santa Barbara, Bayer was heavily involved in the School of Bauhaus in Germany. Inspired by the idea to recreate architecture after the defeat of Germany in World War I, Bauhaus literally means house of construction, leading to modern movements fixated on bridging the gap between art, industry, and the role they play in society. The work of Bauhaus teachers and students was increasingly viewed as degenerate and un-German by the Nazis.
His paintings were in this traveling, degenerate art show that Hitler and Goebbels, I guess, got together to send to different cities in Germany to show people the kind of art you shouldn't be looking at, which was kind of a funny thing to do.
In 1938, Bayer decided it was best to leave Germany. He came to the United States and, after establishing an impressive reputation in New York and Colorado, moved to Santa Barbara, where he spent his final years before his death in 1985.
He concentrated on work more than anything. That's what drove him. He was amazing how at 85 years old he could still produce what he was producing, had the energy level to do that kind of work, not just physically, but to mentally get it out there.
Retired director of the Santa Barbara Museum of Art, Paul Mills, recognized the significance of Bayer's presence in Santa Barbara and was compelled to seek one of his works that the city could call its own. He discovered the chromatic gate design in Bayer's studio. The design was inspired by arches Bayer saw during his trips to Morocco. In his travels, he would come to a place where there would be gates out in the desert. No people or buildings, just an archway remained. He was always impressed by the bright colors of Morocco's carpets and the strong contrasts of the sun and shadows.
To have someone of that stature just have a huge, it's a big piece of art, a big piece of public art right there in one of the gateways of Santa Barbara, not only shows the importance of connecting art to Santa Barbara, but the artist himself.
It's a sort of stealth piece because you think it's not challenging, you think it's boring, and you think its colors are jarring. And then you realize that it was done by a really serious artist, and it was put there by another really serious art person. And, it's, I like it, but on the other hand, I don't like it.
With initial generous donations from the Jacoby Family Fund, other key contemporary art supporters in the community, several Santa Barbara nonprofit organizations and individuals, $75,000 was raised to restore the chromatic gate. The restoration was led by South Coast Fine Art Conservation and Fitzpatrick Specialty Painting. The process involved completely stripping the paint and scraping dirt, moss, and lichen from the metal frame before sanding the gate, cleaning, and layering multiple coats of primer and paint. In July 2013, a ribbon-cutting ceremony was held to acknowledge the newly restored chromatic gate and the donors who made it possible.
This is just a really great celebratory day, not just for the Arts Commission and for the arts community, but for the community in general. It really is an opportunity to celebrate visionaries, celebrate people that are dedicated to the arts in this community, and those of us that are committed to preserving the legacy of our art, our cultural history.
I always have had an interest in the Bauhaus movement, and now that I had an opportunity to help leading the fundraising for the chromatic gate, that it's a personal win over evil which was caused by the Nazis.
Paul Mills would be quite emotional and very moved by what you've done. He'd just simply be so grateful, so thankful, so relieved, and so touched that you cared, and that you could save the chromatic gate when he couldn't. It's moments like today that meant so much to my dad and my mom, moments when the boldness and vibrancy, the bravery and intelligence of contemporary art could bring very different people together and challenge them, please them, make them think and discuss and feel.
The rainbow bends under the weight of its own symbolism, marking the storm past. This rainbow says, remember, there was a breaking, then a healing, and a time when people believed that art could make the world new again.
Santa Barbara's community involvement in the restoration of its art and architecture dates back to the 1880s. When the Santa Barbara mission deteriorated, the community voiced concerns and began efforts to preserve this significant landmark. The project was the beginning of a citywide recognition of the importance of maintaining Santa Barbara's built environment, a recognition that really took hold years later after the 1925 earthquake.
It was a very early and very important step that the city took, but it established in the 1920s that the city had an interest in how it looked, and that it would guard that interest and take care of that interest and foster that intention.
In the early 1920s, Pearl Chase turned her focus to civic affairs. Involved in annual cleanup and beautification campaigns, Chase was always quick to remind Santa Barbara residents that the planning of new developments is just as important as the structures themselves. The Community Arts Association was established in the same decade and dedicated itself to shaping Santa Barbara in a way that preserved its past. The legacy of Pearl Chase continues to inspire contemporary preservation advocates. In 1995, the Pearl Chase Society was formed. This nonprofit volunteer conservancy is committed to maintaining Santa Barbara's natural and built environment through charitable funding of art restoration. One such project was the restoration of the Douglas Partial mural at the Santa Barbara Junior High School Library. The mural had been neglected since it was first painted in 1934.
I went to do some testing, and we found it was covered with a real thick gray surface dirt. It's in a little niche high up on the wall, and the people who painted the actual walls of the room splattered paint on the surface of it in areas. There were areas where the canvas was coming loose from the wall, so that needed to be addressed.
A lot of paintings come in that are filthy dirty, and some people like the dirty look, but that's not the way the artist intended it. And so I feel like we're bringing paintings back to the way the artist envisioned them.
On June 29, 1925, an earthquake damaged much of Santa Barbara's architectural identity. The community seized this tragedy as an opportunity to further the progress begun by the Community Arts Association and rebuild the city in a way that captured Santa Barbara's unique character. In 1929, a new Santa Barbara County Courthouse was completed, creating a home for many works of art in the years to come. The courthouse features a number of paintings by self-taught California artist Dan Sayer Grossbeck. In the 1920s and 30s, Grossbeck served as art director to famed film director Cecil B. DeMille. Grossbeck's ability to capture dramatic scenes through art helped DeMille better envision his films. In 2010, a small fire broke out in the courthouse attic, resulting in smoke exposure to many of these interior artworks. Dan Sayer Grossbeck's mural, located inside the mural room, was one of the damaged works.
This was an urgent cleaning process because it was due to an electrical fire that put a lot of acidic smoke all over the mural, and the mural is not varnished, so the smoke actually penetrated through the canvas, and that made it harder to clean, and it's very acidic and can eat into the paint, so it was important that we got to the job right away.
The cleaning of Grosbeck's oil on canvas called for a crew of 9 people and took about 4 months of carefully coordinated work to complete. After the cleaning, the team set out to fix other damage that occurred prior to the fire, such as flaking paint caused by poor climate control.
What we do is brush a consolidant, which is a liquid water-based glue, and then I have to heat it down with a small tacking iron to relax the paint, and then actually use a burnisher on every one of the cracks to burnish it down level with a matte varnish, and it's an acrylic varnish so it won't yellow with age, but it will protect the surface of the mural. You do sort of get into the head of the artist because you're working so intimately with the piece that you just sort of become one with the artist, I guess it's the best way to say it.
Referred to as the American Riviera due to its sublime natural landscapes, Santa Barbara attracts people from around the world. The city's new airline terminal building offers first-time and returning visitors the opportunity to view a diverse collection of local art pieces, which capture the rich culture, heritage, and landscapes of Santa Barbara.
Well, when we started out with the terminal concept, one of the things that we wanted to have translated into the new building was the Santa Barbara Airport experience. And part of that is the landscaping. You could sit outside, the human scale of the building, but also to share the culture of our region. And I can't think of a better way to do that than through art.
With funds to support the commissioning of 3 new art pieces, a request for proposals was announced for local artists to submit city-inspired designs to decorate the interior of the new airport.
That's where the giant brown kelp exists. Not too many places. Not too many places. We have the biggest kelp forest in the world.
Blades of iron kelp weave in and out of the railing balusters, mimicking the ocean's flow in Colleen M. Kelly's Giant Brown Kelp. The design was created with the help of Kelly's husband, Alfred Ramirez, and brought to life by David Shelton.
We start with a little ball and a piece of rod, and you make this little bladder, what they have for the kelp, and then cut out these leaves. And actually, Colleen brought a whole string of kelp in from the beach and laid it on the shop floor, and we sort of picked out the direction we wanted to go. Because when it's flat, it's one thing, and then when you give it a little feel like it might look in the water, it becomes something entirely different.
It was mentioned to us by David and a couple other people that we know that, and this is true, the kelp beds are seen best from the air.
We wanted to do something that was, to us as artists, what inspired us emotionally about Santa Barbara. And we settled on its beauty. And its beauty meaning its natural flora, its natural landscape, and its architecture. To be that kind of an inspiration of beauty. That, for me, beauty gives joy.
When tasked with creating stenciling for the wood beams in the airport lobby, as well as a 20-foot diameter floor medallion in tile, artists Vidya Gauci and Lori Ann David decided to take a Moorish approach to capturing Santa Barbara's natural splendor. Santa Barbara stargazing spreads the floral imagery of thriving Matilaha poppies with Santa Barbara's city flower, the hibiscus.
The prep work was 2 months. 2 months of drawing, layout, designing, and then hand cutting about 50 stencils.
We don't cut too far ahead because I have to know what sizes that I'm cutting. And so we laid out the islands and the water and the cliffs on both sides because ironically, this landscape slopes to the ocean this way and the landscape on the other side slopes to the ocean the other way, right? Because it has to look real.
500,000 carefully placed ceramic tiles are transformed into a mesmerizing horizon with flourishing greenery, as Santa Barbara 360 appears very real to those who instantly identify this magical location as the Central Coast. The addition of the new terminal building not only provided the opportunity for new creations, but also allowed for works that had previously been in storage to be reintroduced to the public. Built in the mid-1940s, this lantern once hung in the county courthouse. After spending years in the basement of the courthouse, the lantern was restored with the help of Holroyd Studios.
Basically, when it came to us, the pieces of glass that are now not here had a lot of breaks through them. So we had to take them out, and this light is all made of copper. It's a U-channel, which is an unusual way that the light's been made. So what you have to do to get the pieces of glass out is melt this solder joint along here, which sounds easy, but it's really not.
Established in 1924, Old Spanish Days remains one of Santa Barbara's most iconic traditions. The first weekend of August, the city puts on a 5-day-long fiesta, celebrating its Spanish heritage through cultural events. Originally located in the Gold Room of El Paseo Restaurant, Channing Peake's 1983 mural, Fiesta, brings to life the vibrant colors and costumes that come around every summer.
I think it represents Santa Barbara, and that's what I hear from a lot of people, that's one of the reasons they love that mural, because it does kind of reflect Santa Barbara culture and history. Usually artists, when they're doing a mural, they have a model that they use, a study, and it's squared. So they square it off, and they have the design, and then they project it on the wall and fill it in. And what Channing did that was so unusual, what he told me, is he drew those horses freehand.
We have had the Channing Peake murals in store in the maintenance yard of the county for a long time, and not the best of conditions actually, certainly not archival. We were always looking for the perfect place to place them, and because the scale is so significant, we really wanted to find the appropriate location. Well, when they started talking about the public art program at the airport, it was like finally a location that seemed so appropriate, because they wanted to have the focus on regional artists, and that was Channing Peake's been so involved and such a driving force.
Peake received a scholarship to the Santa Barbara School of Arts and worked with legends such as Pablo Picasso, Diego Rivera, and Rico Lebrun. In 1950, Peake returned to Santa Barbara, where he continued to play a large role in the community, serving on the County Arts Commission.
I think he'd be thrilled. I honestly think he'd be very happy that it's there, and the exposure it'll have, and I think he'd be proud.
I served 5 years in the United States Army, and the last year I was in active combat. And I saw guys die right next to me, and somehow the good Lord preserved me. And I said to myself, if I ever make enough money that I can be free to do what I want to do, I'm going to try to make the country I live in, that I love so much and that these poor guys died for, a better place to be in.
True to his words, developer and art enthusiast David Bermant went on to inspire the creation of many public art pieces. Founding the David Bermant Foundation Light, Color, Motion in 1986, he spread awareness of art based on modern science and technology. In 1991, Bermant sponsored a show called Pulse, People Using Light, Sound, and Energy. The show featured a number of kinetic artworks and appeared at various Santa Barbara public venues. One of the kinetic sculptures featured was Good Time Clock 4 by artist George Rhodes. The work was inspired by an earlier work of the same nature called Rocking Wands, in which Rhodes contemplated how he could make a set of wands rock at different periods of time. Introducing a ball into the mix, he established a track that would roll the balls into different seats, each corresponding with a wand.
The rolling ball was, it really started as a means of impetus for the rocking wands. But then I noticed that the ball, with the rolling ball, also had some interest, so I discovered other things for rolling balls to do.
Do we call this art?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I'm an artist and I'm doing it.
As a young steel mill worker in Pennsylvania, artist Dustin Shuler exhibited a natural talent for engineering and design. Shuler shared many stylistic views with Bermant and created various industrial pieces from materials such as metal from cars.
Dustin created the albatross
sculptures for David Bermant and the David Bermant Foundation. In David's world, color and light and motion were very important. So he was developing something that would have motion as part of it. That was intentional. Therefore, when he created the plane that would move at the top of a pole, he wanted it to move in his most dynamic way as possible. That's one of the reasons that he studied the bearing systems and trying to discover a way that it could look like something that didn't need the pole, but just happened to be stuck at the top of it.
It's pretty easy to draw stuff on paper and come up with something that's really cool. The hard part is, how do you actually get it done? And in public art, it's not just the mechanics of getting it done and the engineering and the budgeting, but it's also the bureaucracy of getting it done. And you have to weigh all those factors, and you have to facilitate all those challenges and meetings and make it happen.
With funding from the Pierre Claessens Foundation, artist Douglas Lochner is working to create a sculpture that draws attention to the airport's history as a Marine airbase. Straying from traditional war imagery, Lochner uses a pair of uplifting glass wings to honor World War II veterans and the sacrifices the greatest generation made for our country.
Santa Barbara is well known for going through a very rigorous process, whether it's about building and design or streetscape, you name it. And so public art certainly falls into that category. There are two different types of processes. One is if it's a temporary installation, especially in the historic El Pueblo Viejo, where it gets a courtesy review with the Historic Landmarks Commission. And then we have a very special for visual arts in public places, which is part of our City Arts Advisory Committee. And so for temporary installation, it has to go through that process, make sure it still fits in the historic core. A permanent piece of art has a much more rigorous loopholes to go through because it's going to be there forever.
We see these artists and they have to speak and advocate for their public art, and we actually make comments and we look for enhancements, or we bring up issues that the artist has to resolve. And so it's a really great process for the community to really shape the public art piece.
My original design, the glass went into the ground. There was no base. I mean, basically it just came up out of the ground. There was no visible support. Everything was underground. Through the approval process, there was concern that that would make the base too exposed for people to mess with. Hence the buttresses came into play. Yes, it changes the design of the piece, but not so much that it negates the artistic merit, I don't think. And if that allows it to be built and survive a longer course of life with less vandalism or whatever, then that was a benefit.
Again, the process is good because really the community gets in there and helps to shape the final outcome of these public art pieces. And it's great to see public art because it makes everything look fresh, and you consider things that you don't normally consider. And it's a great encounter as a citizen in Santa Barbara.
As a piece of art, it's intended to make people think and be able to see different things that other people won't see. We hope their interpretation of what they see is something that shows patriotism, sacrifice, honor, and just honor to the ghosts of those that were here at one time. And we hope we make them think and give thanks to the people and all of our wonderful citizens that served during World War II, and especially those who died.
With less rigorous guidelines and a more lenient audience, Santa Barbara features many temporary art pieces as well. A broader acceptance of rotating pieces allows for such artworks to be scattered in a vast array of locations, enhancing the daily lives of residents and tourists alike.
The City Hall Gallery was instituted around 2007, and the exhibitions stay up for 1 year. And they usually reflect the people in the community and the artists in the community. We first showed the famous Colin Campbell Cooper paintings. We've shown the veterans' portraits and profiles from the Pierre Claessens Foundation. We've done hidden treasures. We've done, which are photographs of the community. So I think whether people come in to pay a water bill or they're tourists visiting, they have an opportunity to see a small but very significant exhibition during their time in City Hall.
Internationally recognized New York-based artist Rafael Vargas Suarez created a site-specific mural titled Star Cycle on the side of Santa Barbara's Hotel Indigo. This piece is based on diagrams of how stars move over a period of 100,000 years, and was sponsored by the Museum of Contemporary Art, Santa Barbara.
Even if one person considers it just a metaphor for how reality is, that reality's in motion, everything's in movement, that they just kind of make that connection.
One of our missions is to demystify contemporary art and to really link artists of our time with the public. So we really wanted to have a venue that was a place where people would be surprised by contemporary art. They wouldn't make a conscious decision to walk into a museum, but that the contemporary art would come to them.
Artist Francis Michael Dawson transformed a public garden into an intriguing realm of creativity in his highly interactive installation outside Casa Las Granadas.
It's called stochastic probability, a lot about the forces and the things that we can change and we can affect, and then the things that just happen to us, call them fate, if you will, and maybe if we think about it, what if the life that we're living and all the opportunities we've had, what if we already asked for everything to happen exactly the way it has, even the bad stuff, not just the wonderful things. I planted this area. It's about bringing that voice out, and people have left notes here, stuck in the slats of the sculptures, voices of intention, prayers, notes to past loved ones, things that you could see that they never said to them before, but they wanted to. Simple words to some things that are pretty profound.
Santa Barbara continues to make art easily accessible with the addition of the popular First Thursday program created by the Downtown organization that entices community members to gather and experience a colorful evening of free art exhibits, live music, and more.
First Thursday is a great example of something where you add a social element and that just animates the downtown.
Well, this is a wonderful event because it gets a lot of people out to see what's showing at the galleries and the museums. And the energy downtown is absolutely fantastic. And then we get to go to the openings of major shows, and there's a lot of good art being shown in this town. And there's a lot of wonderful openings. And there's a lot of artists on the tour, but there's also a lot of people that come down just to enjoy the venues and the excitement of the time. And it's a wonderful idea. And I think it's working very well.
I think we need to keep a balance of things that are, yes, sanctioned and vetted and add to the cultural distinction of our community, but also to have that fresh eye towards innovation and what's happening and what people are trying.
Art educator and community activist Laura Inks has played a major role in implementing this idea with the AMAS Gallery in the Funk Zone, an industrial urban neighborhood off Lower State Street, where older affordable studios for artists can still be found. The Funk Zone is a perfect refuge where the artistic mind is free to create at all hours, undisturbed and without disturbing others.
We're a city that's open to creativity and innovation and experimentation, particularly in the Funk Zone neighborhood.
Creativity in the Funk Zone thrives both inside and outside the studios. With a series of panels and designated wall spaces along surrounding buildings, local artists are encouraged to display their works for months at a time before being rotated out to make room for new creations. The Funk Zone's popularity continues to grow, with the number of creative residents doubling over the last 4 years. As new development occurs, it becomes increasingly important to protect areas like the Funk Zone. Fortunately, nonprofit organizations like the Santa Barbara Arts Collaborative give a voice to this innovative district.
What we're trying to do basically is say, is there a way that we can work something out that works really well for the creative community and also for property owners and for business owners that are here now? It's like, how can we work together to create a character for the neighborhood that supports, developers by making the neighborhood trendy and hot, but also they cooperate with the creative people who are making that happen.
I think that historic districts really benefit by showing how architecture has evolved over time. Preserve and maintain the landmarks, but allow architecture that has evolved to be represented in a community.
Located within the historic El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District, Alma del Pueblo consists of 37 residential units and a public market. As this new development moved forward, an historical element was preserved by relocating the 13-foot-high mosaic California Today from the old Vaughn's Supermarket on Victoria Street, where it stood since 1959.
Because of the open character of the street, Victoria Street, the lack of trees, there was always a very glaring light on that mosaic. It hurt the eyes to look at it sometimes a day. And now the light's more filtered because there are trees on Chapala Street. And that breaks the light up, changes the quality of the light from morning to afternoon. It gets a little more variation, and that's an advantage.
Designed by Joseph Knowles, an influential educator and artist who served as supervisor of art curriculum for Santa Barbara County schools for 20 years, the mural features solemn faces reflecting the harsh truths of the colonial period embodied in a pixelated style Knowles experimented with in the 1950s.
There's no question that he had gone through the evolution that seems to have taken place between, let's say, the 40s and 50s, when finally a little reality sunk into Santa Barbara history. And it was realized that those conditions for those Indians were not nice, and they weren't. This was an attempt, I think, by my father to tell the truth, to be fairly, not to be necessarily judgmental, but not to gloss a fictional image over it.
The Ortega Mural Restoration Project is a contemporary example of the community's growing effort to provide a voice for Santa Barbara's youth through artistic expression. With paintbrushes as their main tool, the Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation Department and Arts Alliance charged teenagers to revitalize a park plagued with vandalism and violence.
What we did is we went in and we invited them to actually communicate to the community, to communicate in dialogue between themselves and also with the community in terms of, yes, you know what, this is our community and this is what the youth are about, and we want to express our feelings, our thoughts, and find a way to do it in a positive form. We restored, I believe it's 7 murals at that location. We went back and spoke to the youth in the community, and we asked them, well, what are your feelings about the art? And the overwhelming response that we got from, not only from the youth, but also from the parents, was that they saw a change in behavior. They saw a change in attitudes. The youth themselves told us that, you know what, being part of this project has created a sense of belonging, a sense of place. You know, I feel that I am truly connected to the neighborhood. And that gave us the idea, wait a minute, this is something profound. why not take it to the next level and make this a yearly program where we actually involve underserved youth in the community in these types of projects to reconnect them back into the community.
Other youth-driven projects followed. The mural Rise Above was painted by local teens at Bonnet Park under the direction of international artist Manuel Unzueta. The mural depicts overcoming challenges with the recurring message, Si se puede, yes, we can.
This park is not the same anymore. As of today, it's a different park. Okay, it was falling apart. It looked pretty bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So with the cleanups and all this wall is going to be very important for a long time to a lot of people.
I've been seeing Manuel's murals for years since I was a little kid. So and now I don't really think about it, but when I do, it's like they're still there, you know. So it's like knowing that my murals might be out there that long too. You know, when I'm like in my 40s or something, they'll still be there. Hopefully, I mean, maybe longer.
Recipient of Santa Barbara Beautiful's Hugh Peterson Award for Art in Public Places, the Seaside Park murals at the West Side Community Center highlight the beauty that flourishes beneath the ocean surface.
They leave the mark, and it's good for them and their family. It's not only the person, it's not only one family. It's gonna be the uncle, it's gonna be the grandmother, it's gonna be friends, showing the work. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
If you put your mind to it, anything's possible. No matter where you come from, no matter what you've been through, people change, and it's never too late to change, no matter how old you are.
Cottage Hospital's new patient care building is adorned with the work of local artists. Each floor is dedicated to a different art theme. One floor displays beautiful landscapes and foliage, while another's theme is signature architecture and a sculpture garden.
We wanted to really depict the Central Coast. That's the community we live in. And who better but Central Coast artists to depict the surroundings.
Using visual arts in healthcare environments has become an international movement. Art has been shown to enhance patient care, relieve stress for patients and visitors, and increase employee satisfaction. Research shows that exposure to the arts reduces the use of pain medication, increases compliance with treatments, and shortens the length of stay in hospitals.
There's a growing body of evidence from the medical literature that the environment really is important in the healing process. By the environment, I mean the sights, the sounds, and the near vicinity that patients are in. And art has actually, from direct medical evidence, shows that it can do things like lower the perceived level of stress that patients have, lower blood pressure, actual physiological changes.
In addition to its healing properties, art also has a financial impact on our community. A recently completed study by Americans for the Arts surveyed the economic impact of arts and cultural organizations. Santa Barbara was among the cities surveyed. The study has successfully demonstrated the positive impact on a community's revenue.
So you can start to see then that arts and culture is this product, and when we invest in that product, we're not only improving our quality of life for the people who live here, but we're drawing folks to the community, and those people are spending money. So, vibrant arts community is good for local businesses.
Cultural tourists stay longer, they spend more money, and they typically stay at a hotel. So they're very desirable to have a cultural tourist come to your community.
For a city our size, we rank very well in terms of the number of venues, the number of participants we have, and the involvement with the cultural community. It's a good way to combat the arts are just a frill. The arts are just a nice little add-on to really show it's a great business model for communities to embrace the arts and support local arts and culture.
Like a flickering light in darkness, art has the power to intrigue and draw people closer, providing joy for those who experience its creativity. As Santa Barbara moves forward, so are plans to grow its artistic and cultural communities.
In the 1980s, a regional arts master plan was developed, and the idea was this is a plan that as we have experienced the benefits of over the last 20 years, a significantly improved cultural arts district, because that regional arts master plan said we're going to make Santa Barbara and the greater Santa Barbara area a cultural arts destination. The idea that they would use tourism and cultural arts to be a big driver in the economy.
Santa Barbara is slowly adapting to the idea that new ideas and the vision of artists can and should play a role in our community, and you'll be seeing more art in the future.
Hopefully, someday in Santa Barbara, when we have more public art, there'll be something for everybody, whether you like traditional art, whether you like modern art or contemporary art. It will be as ubiquitous as our tile roofs. I'd love to see art on every single corner.
One of the reasons I'm interested in a cultural arts master plan and seeing that developed over the next 10 years, seeing that realized, is that it will set a course forward for how the arts move forward as the city moves forward. So I'm very excited about what's going on in the funk zone, and to see how it might be a model for other areas so that neighborhoods can be defined in some ways by art.
Santa Barbara's art culture is not confined to galleries or museums. Here, it belongs to the people without boundaries. Henry David Thoreau once noted, "This world is but a canvas to our imagination." What better place to satisfy your mind's inner canvas than through the artistic endeavors of this enchanting city?
Often when a work of art is first installed, it generates intense emotions, pro and con. But the more time it's there, the more time allows people to begin to rethink and assess maybe what was ticking them off initially. And that's a part of the urban experience as well. It's a part of the democratic process.
I was up on a ladder one day attending these, and he's kind of a gruff guy, voice from behind me, "Hey, are you the guy that made those?" I said, yeah, that's me. He said, "Well, let me be honest with you. I hated these when they went up. I hated them." And I'm thinking, okay, here. All right, so are you gonna give it to me some more? And he said, "You know what? These are heroic, they're strong, they're powerful." He said, "Congratulations."
You gotta have a thick skin. I mean, because you're putting your work out in the public sphere and everybody's gonna have an opinion. And you know, if you can't take criticism, you don't want to be a public artist.
The nice thing about having public art in the city is that it's unique. You're not going to find the same piece of public art in different cities. You might see similar sidewalks or similar oceanfront or similar mountains, but it's the public art that puts that unique touch in it, and that makes it a signature piece and defines Santa Barbara.
When I walk into a city, whether it's in Santa Barbara or New York or Aspen or Phoenix, and I look at the public art that's in the community, it's a sign to me that that community is one that prizes their residents. It prizes creative expression, and it prizes and celebrates a thriving way of life.
It enhances the public experience for everyone by creating these site-specific icons that articulate community values and give community identities a lot of times. I've seen dialogues begin between people that don't even know each other, going, "Hey, what do you think of that?" And somebody will say, "That really sucks," or "I really like it."
For the moment that you're looking at art, you're taken away to a different place, and usually it's a more beautiful place, a better place, and it can be a wonderful surprise.
For 10 seconds, for 3 minutes, 26 times a month, 180 times a year, you get a chance to be exposed to it. When the art sits in the museum, you see it 4 times a year. When it sits out in the public, you see it on your way to work every day, and boy, that's a great treat.